Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to do a perspective drawing and painting. There are a lot of components that go into making perspective. However, in general, it is making 3D objects on a 2D surface look 3D even though they're still 2D. Value is how light or dark a color is. I am using a light blue to draw a jagged line about a third of the way from the top of the paper. Below my line, I am filling it in with blue. I am going from darker to lighter. You can use any color. However, mountains often appear blue, purple, and green when in the distance. Other light changes may make them look like different colors. As I add mountains towards the bottom of the paper, I am making them more defined and larger, so they are triangles now instead of just a jagged line, and they are getting darker. Objects also become brighter and more detailed as they get closer, so I'm switching to green because mountains closer to me are going to actually appear green. When we are standing on a mountain though, it doesn't seem like we're standing on a peak. Instead, it usually seems like the ground is sloping. So I add a sloping ground using a curved line. Now we get to color the sky. I decided to do a light sunset, but nothing too crazy. You, on the other hand, could make yours like a bright sunny day with bright blues. You could add some clouds, you could add rain, or you could also do a sunset. The sky is the background, as well as some of the mountains. The closer mountains and sloping ground are the middle ground. To continue creating a sense of depth, I am adding a tree in the foreground. The foreground is the front of the drawing. Adding details in the foreground, such as trees and grass, help place the viewer in the drawing. Adding smaller trees higher up can also help create a sense of depth. Trees that are further away will also have less detail. I like to draw a jagged line across the top of mountains that are closer because it makes it look like the mountains are covered in trees. Any additional details lowered on the paper will help create a sense of depth. In this next section, I am just going to focus on value and creating depth with trees. I am starting with really light watercolor paint. That means I only have a little bit of paint and mostly water on my brush. These are great practice trees because most of them will get covered up. Let it dry between layers or ask an adult to help blow dry it. I am adding some really light trees in the background. Again, let that dry before painting the next layer. Now I'm going to paint another layer of trees, but this time I'm going to use more paint and less water. So this layer needs to be darker than the first layer. I'm using lines to paint grass, then I'm going to paint the trees. Again, the paint needs to dry between each layer, or the layers will all just bleed together into one puddle of paint. I am painting trees with darker paint than I used for the other layers. These trees are also going to have more leaves than the others did, because objects that are closer to us have more detail. I am painting this value of paint all the way down to the bottom of the paper and letting it dry between layers. Lastly, I am adding one dark tree in the very front towards the bottom of the paper. This tree is darker because it has a lot less water and a lot more pigment. This tree is going to have the most amount of leaves because it is closest and therefore needs the most detail. Whether you are doing a drawing or a painting, I hope that you enjoy using these tips to create a sense of depth in your artwork. Video by Tara Gary, music Dan Lebowitz and Evening Ladd.